and as well. Also in the news, what's up with all these booms in Mason City, Iowa? Well, there's been many explosions. Now, some of the reasons are maybe a frost explosion, a meteor-sonic boom, a blown transformer, trains, tenorite, fireworks, buildups in the sewer lines, and aliens, yes, even aliens. Now, all these have been offered up as a possible culprits for a semi-regular, unexplained boom that's been heard by residents of Mason City for the past few years. Now, one witness said this, I hear them mostly in the evening, but they have happened in the middle of the night, which makes you sit up in bed real fast. They still don't know where they're coming from. Previously dismissed myths boost the credibility that Columbus did encounter cannibals. Now, Christopher Columbus accounts of the Caribbean include horrifying descriptions of fierce raiders who abducted women and cannibalized men, and these stories have long been dismissed as myths, but a new study published on January 10th in the scientific reports suggests that Columbus may have been telling the truth. Also in the news, 3 volcanic eruptions from 3 different places. And this is just in a span of 3 days. 3 volcanic eruptions have occurred in the Philippines, Japan, and Mexico. Matter of fact, on Sunday, January 12th, Tao, a volcano, became active and is feared to have a hazardous explosive eruption. Meanwhile, in Japan, Mount Shinatake erupted on January 11th, and Mexico's Popocatépetl on January 9th. Also in the news, Jupiter could be throwing meteors at us. Yes, our science simulations show that Jupiter is just as likely to send comets at Earth as to deflect them away. And we've been seeing this in the real solar system. Now, the models also show now that Jupiter pulls ice balls from the scattered disk between it and Neptune and then flings them in the direction of the Earth. Also in the news, does Iran have a pod of silver killer dolphins? Now, it turns out that there is a possibility, albeit a small one, that Iran's Navy includes trained dolphin assassins. As far back as the 1960s, militaries around the world have been dabbling with the idea of training dolphins to attack, sabotage, or spy on their enemies. Next news break will be tomorrow night.
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with our host, Gary Anderson.
That is me. Our guest tonight is Brenda. She wrote a book. Her newest book is called Visitations to Heaven and Talking to Angels. James, you are so right about a lot of things that's happening. I tell you, the Ring of Fire seems to be, heating up. These volcanoes are going off. You know, we had that one in New Zealand a couple weeks ago. We had the one, 48 hours ago in the Philippines that decided to erupt. And then there's another one. It has gone off. And again, on the news, there's another one that they're worried about. It could go off at any time. I don't know. It's scary out there.
It is, and there's another one in Alaska. I think is starting to brew a little bit. And another on the increase is all these seismic reactions all around the world, earthquakes from upper state New York to Canada. Mexico has some, and they're starting to increase also.
I know. That's scary, isn't it? Because, Earth changes is going on. Again, they have talked about the Earth has kind of tilted a little bit. This was a couple years ago. I'm just wondering if it's tilted more than that they ever, divulged. And that could be causing the Earth changes. I know one thing. The ocean report today that the temperatures both in the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean has risen drastically. And at this rate, basically any sea life in the next couple of years is going to really be quite a bit less because a lot of them are going to die off because they're not used to that temperature increase. A 1 or 2 degree temperature is major in the ocean.
It sure is. And remember, the ocean currents pretty much regulate our temperature around the world in different areas. Believe me, it keeps England from freezing. It keeps Florida warm.
It does. Now, Brenda, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, let's get back to your book. What made you decide to write the Visions to Heaven and Talking to Angels, or with the angels?
I just thought that it would be good for people to know that heaven is real, God is real, angels are real.
Okay. And what other books have you written?
I wrote a book called, what is it? Dealing with Life's Issues.
Oh, that dealing
a
for
couple
life.
of years ago. Dealing with Life's Issues.
Okay.
And I wrote that book is about exactly what the title says. Different things that we go through in life. And I guess it's more of a self-help book because I discovered that you never make a permanent decision over a temporary situation, and a lot of times people do. We, even with suicide, people commit suicide because they don't see a remedy, a solution, a way out. So they commit suicide and, their way out might be tomorrow.
Yeah, but a lot of people have committed suicide. I am an old person. I just turned 68. I was in Vietnam. I've lost a couple friends for suicide. In fact, one of my closer friends, who happens to be an attorney, his son one day, now this is going back about 8 years ago, went upstairs and shot himself in the head. But he just couldn't comprehend, and how can I say it? He couldn't take life each day as it came because of what he went through in the military. There's a lot of people out there that, it leads up. Suicide just doesn't happen from a one-day event. It doesn't happen because you broke up with your girlfriend. There's something, maybe the way you were brought up, you had problems at home or problems when a lot, emotional problems when you're in the military that build up. Maybe you had to do things you didn't like and didn't feel was right. And James, what do you call it? It causes a lot of emotional stress that wears on you. And then one day you can't take it anymore.
PTSD.
Yeah. Well, I've been there as a kid, so I understand that. And you're right, it's not a one-day situation. It's when you feel hopeless and helpless and you believe that there is no way out.
And some people, though, it isn't, because I hate to say it, the way people are treated that have mental issues, mental problems, do you realize it's so hard to get them help? The government doesn't want to step in. The courts don't want to step in. The authorities don't want to step in to help people. And there's a lot of people out there that are walking time bombs that are either going to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. And all this could have been solved if they got the mental help they needed. But you know what? A lot of people turn their heads and just like, oh, he's normal. And we can't do anything about it. We can't help him. And it's scary. I told at the beginning of the show, I took a 10-year break from broadcasting and managed a business. And I watched this black gentleman walk up and down the street at Tacoma. Tacoma was a big street. It's a couple miles long, downtown Tacoma. He'd walk where our business was all the way down to the federal courthouse, then walk across the other side of the street and walk up. And I noticed when winter came, he was still wearing his jeans and his T-shirt, no jacket, no shoes. And I tried to get help. I called the police. And all these different, nobody would step in. They said, hey, we tried helping him. He doesn't want any help, so we can't do nothing. It was really funny. Wow. I went out and bought a guy a pair of shoes. I didn't even know if it was fit, but I just bought them and gave it to him. And guess what? The next time I saw him walking up and down the street, because that's all his life consisted of. From early morning to late at night, he'd walk that couple miles down and couple miles back, couple times a day. But But at least he was
He
wearing
probably
shoes.
had a mental problem.
He did, and he needed help. But nobody would help him, and that's what's bad in this country.
Wow. Wow. I'd like to, if I can, revisit something that I said earlier.
Yeah, please do.
A question. The question that was, why would God need a guard around the throne? And I thought about the Bible says that Satan is the power of the prince of the air. And in the book of Job, Satan came to talk to God. Well, God called a meeting with the angels, and the Bible says that Satan showed up too. And he showed up, and God asked him, have you considered my servant Job? And, of course, Job was tested. That could possibly be one of the reasons why, if Satan still has access to heaven, then that would be one of the reasons why he would possibly want guards around the throne.
I do feel if there is a heaven, then there is the other place, because not every spirit can go to heaven. And I feel that if a person's been very evil, their spirit doesn't go to heaven, and they go maybe the other direction, where they have to serve their eternity for what they have done. But I don't know. It just, I got a funny feeling there is a lot of lost souls that are gone, not to heaven, not to heaven. Or not to hell, not to heaven. They're still somewhere, in neutral, and they're going to be that way for eternity. I don't know, James. What do you? I'm just going to ask you, James.
You think they're?
Well, I was going to ask.
Sorry.
I was going to ask James because he's kind of an expert on that. What do you feel, James?
About the people that pass on?
Well, people it don't go to heaven, and they can't go to the other place.
Well, I could tell you in my world of being psychic medium and 30 plus years of helping people with paranormal problems, some people don't go to either place. They become earthbound spirits, or they attach to things. And believe me, I've seen them. I've seen earthbound spirits all my life. I've seen them mostly every day. Some of them, they're here, they're good, they're bad. Some aren't either ones. They don't know they've died. Some, they're afraid. Some don't go either place because they're afraid. They're afraid of, going to hell. And I've helped people with paranormal problems. Some of these earthbound spirits are cantankerous. So they're bad in life. They're going to be bad in death. They terrorize people. Some of them, they just don't know. Like I said, they don't know they've passed on, or they're so attached to material things they don't want to move on, and they hang around. And that's unfortunate. I've crossed a few over. Some of them attached to people. They become like a spirit attachments, and it affects people's moods and the way they think and act. That's in my world, and on a lot of other people's world. It's unfortunate. Sometimes these spirits that I've come across, I've talked to them, they crossed them over, and their relatives waiting for them, loved ones, whatever. But that's in my world, and it's not all what do you call black and white, unfortunately.
So you believe that there are, just to clarify, you believe that there are spirits that don't go either heaven or hell, but they're earthbound?
Oh, it's not a matter of belief. It's a fact in my world. I've seen it. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen them. I've seen seen these spirits. Some of them, they don't. Here's the thing with some people: when they die, they either die so fast they don't even know they're dead. Some of them is so tragic it leaves such a emotional scar on a place they're confused, or some of them there's a whole plethora of reasons why somebody might not cross over when their window comes, and unfortunately when they don't do that, and then they may regret it, and they've tried to get people's attention by being noisy or scratching them or touching them, because especially if somebody has got abilities where they can see some of these spirits, and they want them to help them cross over. But that's in my world, and yeah, honestly, it's not a matter of belief. I've seen spirits since I was 3 years old. I used to play with a little Indian spirit, and I didn't know what spirits were.